This is Movers and Shakers, where we interview the upcoming generation of make it happen multifamily investors to share their story.
Welcome to the Movers and Shakers podcast. My name is Gino Barbaro, co-founder of Jake Gino, multifamily investor, educator, father, mentor, and I am joined by my co-host, my brosif, Joshua Ryan Rusin, community director of Jake Gino. Josh, how you doing today, bro?
Gino, doing well, man. Excited that it's getting warm here in Tennessee. Days are getting a little bit longer, and just ready to end this lockdown and start having events again and stuff.
Josh, when I hear days are getting longer, that means you're working longer days too, huh, bro?
Oh yeah, always making it happen.
I love that. Let's get into the podcast today. Let's get into the show today. It's gonna be a great show.
Yeah, speaking of today's guest, we have Kyle Marcotte. So Kyle's a 21-year-old syndicator. While still a student athlete at UC Davis, Kyle was able to syndicate 2 multifamily apartment buildings, totaling 119 units and are valued at over $5.5 million. All right, Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course. Okay, so let's take this back a couple of years. How did real estate get on your radar and why?
So I actually read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was a sophomore at UC Davis. And at the time I was playing soccer and studying pre-med. And I was kind of realizing that I didn't have any freedom. I didn't have any time, even though people had perceived that that was the successful thing to be doing, getting a scholarship to play soccer in college and then, studying medicine, which is perceived to be such an amazing career path, which it is for some people. But for me, it wasn't, because I was looking for freedom rather than, any sort of wealth. Even though real estate does create great wealth, I was more in it for the freedom. And that book kind of opened my eyes to the fact that I can make money independent of my time and actually get that freedom that I was looking for. And I just heard that at the perfect time in my life where I was extremely frustrated with my current situation. And it led me to investigate real estate. I was doing some wholesaling, was really successful with that, but the wholesaling was still a job. I was still, trading my time. So I realized I had messed that up. And then I went and looked for multifamily, started learning more on BiggerPockets, reading books. And I actually reached out to Gino on LinkedIn, and he was like, "Hey, you should check out this program we have for people like you." And then I think I talked to you or Nick, and ended up getting in the program, made it happen. And then, yeah, met some partners from the group and ended up doing 2 deals.
Boom. All right. So there's a ton to unpack there. So initially starting out from the outside looking in, you hear someone that has a scholarship to a great school and they're going pre-med. Most people would say that's the American dream. All of a sudden, when you're going this shift and you're going, I'm going to do real estate, and you're changing your dreams, did you get pushback from friends, from family, from colleagues? And how did you overcome that?
Oh yeah, I got pushback from just about everyone, including my own self at times, which was definitely stressful. My roommates perceived it as me thinking I was smarter than them and that I didn't need school or something like that.
You're smarter than them. You're smarter than them, right?
I got lucky and I read a good book at a great time. Honestly, I don't think that I wouldn't
has
argue
nothing to do with luck. What it has to do with is you're looking for something better. I want to answer your question. Who didn't push you back? Whoever didn't push you back is the people you should be surrounding yourself with, because those are the people that are like, you should go for your dreams. If your dream is not becoming a doctor or becoming an entrepreneur, that's your dream. You should be going, I want to be friends with that person, not that people think I'm crazy. That's the person you should stay away from. So I want to make sure everyone understands. How old are you, Kyle?
21. At the time I was 20.
Okay. Kyle is 20 when he starts the journey. The first limiting belief, I don't care how old you are, when you're ready, you're ready. Kyle read the message when he was 18. He was ready at 18, 19. If you read the message when you're 24 and you understand it, that's when you're ready. You're only ready when you are ready to receive the message and you're ready to know that the American dream is whatever you want it to be. So I'm sorry to interrupt, Kyle. Continue.
No, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. But for my situation, it just wasn't really, I guess I hadn't surrounded myself properly to begin with. So I didn't really have the people supporting me necessarily. A lot of people were scared. I actually didn't tell my mom for a while because I knew how she would react. And I wanted to wait till I got my first deal before I told her. So me and my dad had a little pact not to tell her for a while, which is a little bit funny in retrospect. At the time, it was nerve-wracking. She was definitely could tell something was up because, moms have that sense. But they had planned for me to be, a college graduate, a doctor, yada, yada, all that good stuff. And for me to kind of change and pivot like that was definitely a blind side for everybody. But, I just had to kind of double down in that 6 months where I wasn't in school and I stopped playing soccer. The conversation with the coach was very difficult, but got through that. And then the 6 month gap from like leaving all that stuff to actually doing my first deal was probably one of the hardest like 6 month stretches of my entire life, but it taught me so much about myself and resilience and, just having faith that if you keep the right actions and you're consistent with it, that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, or, how old you are. You just have to, trust that cause and effect law and just keep putting in the right action, and you will, reap what you sow.
I had a couple calls with Kyle, and I got to know him pretty well. And I know one thing: he is the embodiment of education times action equals results. How many books did you read in that 6 month period?
I was at one point, I was reading almost 2 to 3 books a week.
2 to 3 books a week. If you read 2 books a week in a year, that's 100 books. Not many people read 100 books in a lifetime, let alone in a year. So he's taking massive education and couple that with massive action that will ultimately lead to massive results. Over 100 books. What did you see in the Jake and Gino community that really stood out and really helped you get into real estate?
Number one, it was just the community. I knew that I could get the education, whether that was going to be from the program or from podcasts or just from hustling. I knew I was going to be able to figure that out, but I knew that ultimately I needed the people in my life and the network in order to actually do deals, because it's a team sport. And, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't have those partners, like the ones that I ended up finding in the group, so I made the right choice. That was really what I was looking for, those, because I knew I needed help as far as partnering.
So Kyle, we have very similar stories. I didn't tell my mom I was investing with Jake until I had 200 units. And it was like the most challenging thing in the world because I worked at the restaurant. So she'd always see me on the phone. She'd know I was on my laptop, and she just knew it, right? But for me, it was her saying to me, Gino, it's risky. You've got 6 mouths to feed. And constantly hearing that was like, okay, I'm not going to tell her. I'm going to wait till I get the success. I'm going to wait. I wish I had done it differently. I wish I had told her, Mom, this is my plan. You want to fly down to Tennessee, take a look at the properties I'm buying? But for me, it wasn't. For you, what was a conversation with your mom once you did, get your first deal? And I guess it's proof of concept. We want that. But what was that conversation like?
Well, just telling her, number one, that I wasn't in school anymore and that I hadn't been for 6 months was an issue. It was just like the first thing. She was obviously startled by that. But I knew that, we're so programmed to believe that the only way to be successful, because ultimately my mom wants me to be safe and healthy and secure. That's what she wants. And she perceives that the only way for me to be safe long-term and to have the stability that she wants me to have is to have some sort of a degree, because this paper is magically going to give me there. And what I explained to her was that, the paper isn't the thing that gives you the security. It's, if you're going to do the college route, you better be learning in your classes, and the education that you acquire is what's going to make you stable. But it really has become, the document is what we perceive to be valuable, which it isn't, right? And so I figured, I'm learning more now than I ever have ever in school when I'm self-educating. So the real thing is, like, the whole thing about power or security or, being safe, it's all about how smart you become, how much you educate yourself. And I was educating myself way more than I was in college. So that was the explanation, kind of. And she started to slowly see that paradigm and then kind of say, okay, well, you figured it out. I guess you're doing pretty well. You just closed a 107 unit deal. So you must have some idea what you're doing.
So the thing that bothers me about the whole thing, though, is your actions. Fall in love with your actions. That's what Kyle is doing, everybody. He's falling in love with his actions. He's falling in love with his learning. He's falling in love with personal development. He's falling in love with the value that he's going to create for others. And then not falling in love with your results, because ultimately you're going to hit the results. So that's the powerful thing about it. And the fact that you can stick through it and read 2 books a week and say, you know what, I'm not getting paid for this today, but I will reap what I sow tomorrow. And that's the power of multifamily. It's a long sport. So if you can already figure out that you need to put a lot of work into it today and you're going to reap those benefits 6 months or a year from now, that's the powerful thing. Kyle, can you just share with us a couple of things that you read, a couple of, books that really stood out to you? So, for anyone young out there listening, saying, you know what, I want something different. Where do I start, though? For me, your story is all about the go-giver. It's all about, thinking about the other side. How can I create value for the other person? How can I create value for the broker? How can I create value for my partners? How can I create value for this investment? That's the mentality there. So I would tell everyone and challenge everyone, pick up The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. Start there. It's a great parable. It will tell you that it's not how much you know, but it's how much you can help people and how much you're interested in their story and how to solve problems and really create value for the other side. So do you have a couple recommendations for us?
Yeah, I'd say every person needs to read The Miracle Morning. That's probably what really skyrocketed my improvement, was the fact that I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning, doing work for till 5:30 on myself. And then, at one point, to pay for like some of the flights to some of your guys' meetups, I was working at a senior living facility from like 6 a.m. to noon. I had like the graveyard shift or whatever. Waking the residents up, which is definitely the most difficult job, and was really trying, but it was the only place that was hiring. And I knew I needed to be able to pay for those flights to go and meet the partners. That was the whole reason I joined the group. So, if I wasn't doing the Miracle Morning, I probably would have just let all the personal development slip, and I wouldn't have been able to become the person I needed to be when I met those partners, because people could see that I had done a tremendous amount of work on myself, and that I showed up not as a 20-year-old in my mind. I mean, like, I physically am a 20-year-old, but I was trying to do so much work on myself that I could go and meet these people in their 30s, eye to eye, and understand that, I am disciplined. I'm committed to success. And the second book I'd recommend is probably The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, because it just talks about the whole, reap what you sow, causative effect. Like, it's really, because we perceive that success is these massive things, these massive, huge events that are super complicated. It's really not. It's like these small things every day for a long period of time. And that's all it is. And it makes it a lot more simple. And you stop being so worried about, like, am I a successful person? It's like, well, all you have to do to be one is to just do the right thing every day, small, and then it eventually turns into a huge thing.
Kyle, do you mind if I recommend the book to all the listeners also?
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if you read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh yeah, great book.
And it really talked about you mentioned the compound effect, and I want everyone out there, really pick it up. He's got great notes on the book. He's in the process of writing another book. I'm trying to get him on our podcast, but he's super busy. But he's an amazing dude in the fact that he put this book together, and it's really the essence of what Kyle just said. Those little things will move the goalpost, and they start compounding. Whether it's getting up at 4:30 in the morning, do that for 6 months or for a year, and do an hour on yourself for a year. You will start seeing results happen. And that's the amazing thing about it. Getting those habits, finding out if the habits are really serving you or they're not. And we're just in program mode right now. 9 to 5, go to W2, get the job, bring your kids to soccer. Is that all working for you? Assess your life and see if that's working for you. So that's really, really important. So I would recommend everybody out there to start figuring out, and when you set goals, Kyle, how do you set goals? I mean, let me just, figure out how James Clear does it. Like I said, don't fall in love with the actions, fall in love with the results, fall in love with the process. Put systems in place. Kyle already has systems in place. One of his systems was get up early in the morning, do some work, and then go to a job that I hate. That's probably soul sucking, right? But it's a big sacrifice. And when you're going to go to a deal and you're going to sponsor a deal, I want a person who's sponsoring a deal like that will go the extra mile, will do something that he hates to do. So that's important. So you're following that system, that process. How do you set goals for yourself?
I try to set process-based goals that I can, control in some sense. Because I used to do this thing where I'd be like, oh, I want to make this much money by this time. And it's like, well, how am I going to make that money, right? So I changed my goals to basically, I'm going to make this many calls this week. I'm going to make this many meetings this week. I'm going to DM this many podcast hosts this week. I'm going to, email this many investors. So I put a number and a task that I can achieve. And I understand that that's going to be getting me to this big, money number time goal that's in the future. So if it's a unit goal, like a lot of people say, I want to do 100 units in my first 12 months. Well, it's like, what actions lead to the 100 units? And then let's just put a number behind those actual like steps that you can take. And then you'll just get to the 100 units without, thinking about that. You'll just be doing the actions weekly and monthly and daily, and then it'll be there.
That's awesome. I need to piggyback off that, Josh. Hold on one second, because it's really important. This is the essence of crushing your goals. If you want to get a deal in the next 12 months, you need to be underwriting at least 80 deals. So it's the race to 80. So if you're underwriting 2 deals a week, it's going to take you 40 weeks. If you underwrite 10 deals a week, it's going to take you 8 weeks. So figure out the process and actually document it. Start working on your daily and start working on your week. Start figuring out what your quarterly priorities are that are going to lead to it. So it's exactly what James Clear is talking about. And obviously, you read the book and you crushed that book. It's important for everyone to pick that book up and read it if you want to have a systemizable way to set goals. And then the thing I would like to say to everybody else is, once you hit the goal, enjoy it. It's a win. Once you've called 10 brokers at the end of the week, or you've DM'd 3 people and you said, relish it, enjoy it. Don't just move on to the next task. Cause that was my biggest mistake, whether it was from going from $3,000 a month in cash flow, passive, up to 10,000, up to getting, 80,000 downloads on the podcast. I continued to blow through all these goals and I didn't enjoy them. So what's the sense of setting a goal and not enjoying it and saying, hey, I did a great job, congratulate myself, but what's the next goal? So that's important to do.
And can I piggyback on your piggyback? Because I actually,
can.
one of the things that I've chunked down is like the capital raising. That's been one of the things I've been successful at. And a lot of people focus so much on the amount that they're raising. And I try to chunk it down into numbers you can understand, because like try to picture 500,000 golf balls. You can't, but you can picture 50 golf balls. And so I don't focus on money. I focus on meetings. And I actually have a calculator that I can send to your listeners if they reach out to me, that calculates the exact amount of meetings and how long it's going to take you to raise a certain amount of money. And it's based on like, you can change the amount of meetings you have per week, and you can change, your conversion ratio. But for me, I had like 16% conversion ratio. So it took me 50 meetings to get 8 yeses. And that's how I raised $500,000. So it's 50 meetings and 8 people that you need to get to say yes. You don't need to raise 500,000. You just need 50 meetings and 8 yeses.
It's called the KPI, the key performance indicator. We're always trying to measure stuff, and we're not out there guessing. Guessing is for fools, and entrepreneurs and people who are successful are always measuring stuff. So test and measure. Josh, go ahead, bro.
No, love it. All right, Kyle, I want to focus on how you were able to raise at a young age, right? Because most of the investors you're meeting with are probably a little bit older than you. So let's talk about what hurdles you ran into, how you overcame them, and some of the best practices in raising capital for multifamily.
Yeah, so that is definitely an obstacle that I faced. And I think that this is one of the more effective communication or, sales strategies you can do, is just to open out of the gate and say, the thing that they're thinking, the immediate objection, kind of counter it for them. So what I would say is I would start out being like, yes, it's obvious that I'm 20 years old, right? Like there's no escaping that. I look 20 years old. I can't run away from that.
Accusation audit. You're throwing out Chris Voss's accusation audit. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's a great way to do it. You're throwing all the crap out there. You're setting the frame in their mind, and they're readjusting it and going, you know what? He is 20 years old. Sorry, continue with that. But that's a really excellent way to start out.
That's where I got it from. Yeah. So like all the books that I read that. I read Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. It's another great book that talks about setting the frame. And that's where I learned so many of the, that's why I have a higher conversion ratio, even though I'm 20 than most people. It's just because I'm reading these books and educating my mind. But, you get like throwing out, what they're thinking first. So saying I'm 20 years old, admitting it, being authentic about it the whole time, and then making it about them. Because basically the whole pitch comes down to this. It's, you have to define their current situation clearly and with numbers. So what they're currently doing, and so how much passive income are you making per month? Oh, you're not making any. Okay. Well, let's really define that current situation. Okay. Well, why aren't you making any? How does that make you feel? And really, make sure that they understand their current situation isn't going to get them where they want to be, right? So then we have to define what their desired situation is, and we have to put numbers to that. So how much passive income would you like, right? Then they say, let's say 5,000. So now we have a clear current situation, 0, and a clear desired situation, 5,000. And now I want to position myself as the thing that can bridge them from their current to their desired. And that's kind of the whole pitch. And I have like a presentation and all this good stuff.
Wow. So those 2 books are great. We've had Oren Klaff on the Wheel of Our Profits podcast. If anybody has not listened to that podcast, you need to get on that podcast, because he talks about, setting the frame. He talks about the status. He talks about everything in that book. And I love it. And that's, and the Chris Voss book, also another amazing book. We've had him on the Wheel of Our Profits podcast a couple of times. Listen to those podcasts. If you're not a reader, you got to get it on Audible, because they're amazing books. I love that. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors.
At Rand Capital, we're focused on providing the best financing option for each deal and every client. Our personalized service, along with our blue-collar work ethic, will give you the peace of mind to know that we will take the stress out of the financing process so that you can focus on other aspects of your business. For more information and to find out how Rand Capital can help you find the best loan for your deal, visit randcapllc.com to start the conversation.
Now, Kyle, 21-year-old, I'm 21 years old. What are the next steps that I need to do to get into multifamily?
I'd say number one would be, either just educate yourself by your own self and see if this is something you're really going to be committed to. So that would be podcasts like Wheelbarrow Profits or some of the other good ones that are out there. And then just really educating yourself through books as well, and going to local meetups and just learning the lingo and getting involved and getting in some live practice and how to communicate with people. and understand what words work and what words make you seem like a very big novice, and then stop using the ones that don't work and use the ones that do. Because before you if you can't communicate with people and interact and use the right lingo, and kind of understand the industry, then it's just, because you're 21. So you look like you're an outsider. So if you don't really understand how to speak, then you're going to always be an outsider. And the only way to overcome that is to really know what you're talking about, right out of the gate.
I love that. So I'm 25 years old and I'm progressing. What should I do? What else should I do? Are there any other things? Should I join a community? Should I start networking? Should I start talking to brokers? What else would you recommend?
Yeah, I would definitely say joining a community would be huge. And then if you're going to reach out to brokers, understanding how to do that. So, I have a free script for broker reach out on my website that's, there's different times that you need to talk to them at, introductory email, then, property specific emails and things like that. Because it comes down to the lingo. If you don't have live practice and you reach out to a broker and you say some crazy thing, and it just doesn't make any sense, then they're going to be like, okay, I'm not going to email this guy any deals. He's never done one before. So it really comes down, it's all about communication, and perception, especially at a young age, especially just in any professional industry. People don't want to waste their time. Their time is valuable. So you have to, be someone that they're willing to spend time on.
I love that. Before we get to the short answer questions, what are your goals going forward? I mean, what do you want to create? Do you want to continue to take deals down, continue to raise capital?
Yeah, I definitely want to continue to raise a lot of capital and take deals down. I really want to give back to people and help them understand multifamily more. And I'm trying to decide how to do that best. And that's something I'm probably going to need y'all's help on, but I want to give back in the sense that I was helped by a community and I, it really changed my life. So how can I, give people the same help that I received?
So for me, I'm creating something called Wheel Up Borrow Profits Youth Academy. And what I'm trying to do is to try to teach teens and young adults a lot of the stuff. And I'm trying to teach parents how to teach their kids. Like, a lot of kids don't have skills to learn in life. I mean, skills of maybe not having instant gratification, maybe communication skills, maybe goal setting skills. It's really incumbent upon the parents to teach teens and young adults. So what I would say to you is maybe start thinking about giving back and teaching teens and young adults a lot of these skills about money, about finances, about what a balance sheet is, about setting a budget, all these skills that we don't learn in college or in high school. And then we come out and then we're scared and intimidated about money. So I think those are a lot of the things I think I see you doing in the future.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
All right, Kyle, I got some short answer questions here for you. Besides The Miracle Morning, what's your favorite book and why?
Probably E-Myth, just because it's kind of a mind bender, similar to Rich Dad Poor Dad, where I realized okay, now I'm independent of my time, but I'm still not valuing the actual hours and I'm not delegating any tasks, and I'm being, I'm basically employed by myself and I'm doing so much of my own work. So yes, I can essentially, do whatever because I'm the boss, but I don't want to necessarily be my boss. I want to just be the owner of the business. I don't want to be working in the business. I want to work on it. So I think that's definitely a great one to read.
Love it. What about best habit for success?
Best habit for success for me is quiet time in the morning, whether that's, just meditation or some sort of prayer. I think that that's ideal, just to really, silent it out. Because if you just keep going you just keep getting in that wheel and you just keep trying to do productive task, after 30 days or so, you completely get lost. You have no idea where your center is. And it's really important for me to take that time in the morning and just understand, the bigger picture.
It's really good. All right. So there have been a lot of golden nuggets in this episode, and I'm excited to share some of them. So first one is questioning the norm, right? So if Kyle would have continued on his journey on the outside looking in was great, student athlete, going to medical school, things like that, he wouldn't have been on the journey he is now. The next one is obviously knowledge and your network and education equals results or an action. And then working harder on yourself than your job. So becoming the person needed to achieve the level of success. I think it's Jim Rohn that says your income level never usually exceeds your level of personal development. And then also embracing the suck. I mean, as Kyle was going through this, and there's that 6 months before that first deal, there was a lot of work and things he had to do, like discipline, dedication to get where he was that most people aren't willing to do. And lastly, the importance of books and education. I like to think of it when I'm learning something or reading a book, like I'm Neo in the Matrix when he's getting ready to fight Morpheus and they plug in the back of his head and upload all those skills. I like to think that's what I'm doing to my brain and upgrading my operating system when I'm learning the experiences that someone had in their lifetime that's in a book and able to piggyback off that and use that. Gino, what do you have to add to that?
Well, Josh, I think Kyle is the embodiment of what a Jake and Gino community member is. I think it's someone who's out there who knows that they can do better, knows that they want to be better, knows that they have gratitude, knows that they want to share their experience and share their knowledge and actually give back and really continue to educate and not go with the status norm. I mean, how many 21-year-olds read the E-Myth? I mean, most 41-year-olds don't even know what the E-Myth is, right? Because it's something that is not normal. Like, really? You're going to tell me I am a manager or I'm a technician or I'm an entrepreneur? Most people would be like, that's crazy. But having an open mind, and I should have said this earlier in the podcast, Kyle has the growth mindset. Most people have a fixed mindset where they go around their day and they just don't look outside. The growth mindset is willing to work hard, willing to get up at 4:30 in the morning, willing to go to a job at 6 o'clock just to pay the bills, to go somewhere else and to continue to grow. That's all about the growth mindset. Embody that growth mindset, and I will guarantee you will hit and achieve your goals.
Love it. Kyle, how can the listeners get a hold of you?
So probably the best place is my website, kylemarcotte.com. And then on Instagram, KyleMarcotte9. If you just shoot me a DM, I pretty much answer every single one.
Kyle, it's KyleMarcotte.com.
Listen, I want to thank Kyle for being an amazing guest on the show and sharing his Movers and Shakers story. If you want to be the next Movers and Shakers guest, email me, josh@jakeandgino.com. And listen, if you like the show, please leave us a review. And until next time, let's make it a Movers and Shakers week. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, man.
Hey, Gino, the two most common questions I've been asked are, how do I get into real estate and do my first deal? The other question, how do I scale my real estate portfolio? Well, gang, we have great news for you. Gino, tell them about it.
We can help you answer both of those questions. At jakeandgino.com, we offer a variety of micro courses to help you along your real estate journey. Our proprietary 3-step framework has helped hundreds of real estate entrepreneurs successfully get started in real estate with no experience, and it has also helped experienced real estate entrepreneurs take it to the next level.
If you want more information, visit www.jakeandgino.com/courses. That's JAKEANDGINO.com/courses and use coupon code PODCAST for 20% off your purchase on taking the next step in your multifamily journey.